Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and I'm here with the scholars from the edge of time, Nicholas Diak and Michele Brittany. Greetings, oh scholars.
Greetings, Hercules. Good evening, and greetings to all of our watchers this evening. Welcome. And this, of course, is our producer. This is Cecily, our
Cecily.
our tortoiseshell kitty, who
Thank
regularly makes an appearance every month. So anyway, she's here.
Hey, bugs. All right.
Anyway, back to us as scholars and not, doting cat parents.
So, new year, 2026. I think we're off to a good start. How about ladies first? What's going on with you, uh, MCB?
Things are going well. I did a manuscript review, and that was an interesting process. It went very well. Turned that in. So,
Well, she had a publisher reach out to her and say, "Hey, we have a book we're trying to publish. We need a peer reviewer, manuscript reviewer for it." So they went to Michele.
yeah, and apparent I was invited,
Hmm.
so which was really nice. I hadn't ever done that for a publisher before, so it was a good learning experience. And actually, I mean, I can't discuss the manuscript, but I found it a very good read, well thought out, enjoyable, and really thought it'll work well with the kind of books that the publisher does publish in their catalog. So I think it'll be a good addition at some point down the road. Also, still trying to work on getting the Mummy manuscript up to snuff, working with my co-editor. We both have had a few little personal hiccups along the way, so hoping to get those ironed out and get that finished and off.
awesome.
Yeah. How about you?
Um,
A manuscript of writing rise.
it's a start, start of a new year, start of, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't have a big show and tell this time. I do have a lot of stuff going on. We'll start with I just don't have anything to really show for it. I guess the first thing is late last year I was contacted through a person that we befriended at the Film Society here in Phoenix to get in touch with the behind the scenes people, filmmakers of a tiki documentary called The Dawn of Tiki. It's a documentary about Don the Beachcomber. And they wanted, they're doing a screening, they wanted press for it and everything like that. So I put my name out there to, yeah, I'll interview the filmmakers for the Tiki magazine I write for, although I haven't written for them in a while. But I guess it's my return to writing for the Tiki magazine. So long story short, yeah, Michele and I late last year went and saw and interviewed the people behind the Dawn of Tiki. Got my interview done, turned in. So that's like kind of the first like writing assignment done for 2026. So
And I did the photography for it.
yeah, Michele did camera work, taking pictures of the filmmakers and stuff. It was quite the process. Usually, most people I've interviewed have been through email or maybe Zoom, but this time because we're in person, I actually bought a little. Oh, it's right up here. Little, tape record. Well, it's not a tape record, but you know what it is. It's a little handheld thing. Interviewed the folks, and it's like I had 45 minutes of dialogue, and I had to find transcription software, then I had to edit it, and it came out to thousands of words, and of course you got to trim that down for a magazine, and of course I still think it was probably too long. It was an endeavor, so I'm glad to have that done. Just waiting for feedback and edits, and maybe Nick, you might want to trim this down a little bit more. But excited. I've got other Tiki essays that have been on the back burner that my the editor for the magazine's give me the thumbs up to do. I just need to do them. So now a little reinvigorated to do that, I guess. So that's like the first big publishing thing for this year.
Yeah, I think we both had some sense of accomplishment on our various writings, which
Mm.
is always helpful and helps us to keep going, I think.
I should say this is the first time Michelle and I have done press work since before COVID. Before COVID, Michelle and me to a lesser extent, but mostly Michelle, she would go to San Diego Comic Con and interview people and stuff, and all the Comic Cons in the LA area, we would do some form of press at, be it going to panels and talking about
Yeah.
them or whatnot. So, COVID kind of killed that for a while, and we hadn't done a lot of that in-person stuff since then. So this was kind of our first, hey, we got to be press people again. Put the old
Yeah.
press hat on like Fonzie Bear.
Well, and on top of that, not just pop culture, that's comic book related, but Nick and I also tag teamed on covering some of the concerts in the LA area, which
Oh yeah.
for a variety of outlets, I think. So we did some stuff that way too. So it was nice to partner up again and do even other things together in addition to podcasting. So, what else you got over there on your
Well,
pile?
this is all stuff from when we talked tonight.
Oh, that's
I,
when we talked
I
tonight.
guess,
Okay.
one other thing. So, the other bit of news is I think last month I showed off those New Edge Sword and Sorcery magazines that had cocktails published by me in it. Well, I got formally invited back to write cocktails again this year. So, I'll be doing that shortly once I get the thumbs up on Nick, we want you to do cocktails on these specific books. So last year I was able to pick what I wanted to do. This year they're gonna pick for me, which is good because or else I'm just gonna give them three Lynn Carter centric cocktails, and I would be a fan of that. I don't know if anyone else would. Thongor the Barbarian Ale or something.
Oh, that'd be funny. That would be funny.
I guess the last thing, I'm just gonna do a plug, kind of, maybe sort of. I don't know. Eric von Däniken passed away. What, a week ago?
We did a special tribute show, and we added him to our Hall of Heroes, where we will
Yeah,
celebrate him yearly on the show with his tribute show.
I never read Chariots of the Gods and stuff. The what little interest I have of ancient aliens and stuff came from the TV show and sightings and stuff. But I understand his like impact on pop culture and stuff. So I do want to do it. My one contribution to Eric von Däniken studies was a couple years ago. The Twilight Zone book came out, the many lives of the Twilight Zone, and I think we talked about this on the show long ago, but yeah, I did an essay on the movie Encounter with the Unknown. But that came out in the mid 70s, and that's when Chariots of the Gods got its documentary debut, translated from book to documentary format and stuff. So, I mentioned basically, 70s, in search of stories, Chariot of the Gods, and kind of that, it was like that zeitgeist of paranormal, UFO, mysticism, and all that stuff going on. So, my one contribution to to him, I guess.
And I can remember a lot of those as a little kid. Like, I think it was Barney. Oh, is it the Hills who had been abducted, and there was
Barney and Betty Hill, yes.
yeah, and there was the documentary, the story, or kind of a fictionalized story, but I can remember the movie, but also as a kid, Blue Book and In Search of, so many episode or television series that were out in the early 70s around a lot of, interesting theories. So I remember In Search of was a huge one for me, and watching quite a few episodes with my dad when I was a kid.
I should point out real quick. I'm not the Tiki article I just did. The person at the film festival, our Society of Film Critics here in Phoenix, that got the whole thing moving for me.
Oh yeah,
He actually grew up. He was a little kid in
Hubert.
Heber.
Hubert.
So he was like living in the town and knew all the people and stuff for the Travis Walton. Walton, I think that's his name, right? Travis
Yeah,
Walton.
Travis
Yeah.
Walton.
the fire in the sky stuff. So he lived through all that. Like I guess his dad actually worked in the fire department or something, so he was helping with, trying to search for the guy and stuff. But that's where he grew up. And I totally forgot that that town is like 2 to 3 hours northeast of us. So I think Michelle and I are going to have to take a little trip up there to check out the
Yeah.
fire in the sky stuff. Side note, that movie is scary. But yeah, the guy who got me the Dawn of Tiki, setting that all up for me to interview the folks, lived in that town when all that was going on when he was a kid.
Yeah, we actually just met up with him and his wife
For
last
tiki drink.
for tiki drinks last weekend
Yeah.
at was
Hula's.
Hula's in Scottsdale, right?
Mhm.
Old Town. Yeah. For me, nothing, like extremely exciting, but hanging out with this guy. But I will say that I did add to my library a little bit. I try not to buy too many books, but I did get a few. So I thought I'd share them. And kind of coming off the whole Wilcox and going to see Edgar Rice Burroughs commemorative event down in Wilcox, and then also talking about his stories and John Carter and things like that. I've always been a big history buff, as you probably all know. And so when we were in Scottsdale, we went to a bookstore called The Poisoned Pen.
Mhm.
So definitely want to say, if you live in the area, check out that bookstore. It's really cool.
They're
I,
also a publisher, I believe. They're
yeah,
their own imprint of, I think, mystery and suspense books too. Hence the name Poison Pen.
yeah, I think it's Poison Pen Press or
Mhm.
Poisoned Press or something like that. I'll be
It's
honest, I don't remember. But I
still
did,
neat.
yeah, I did pick up the Apache Wars, which was going. This is the story about like Geronimo and things like that, and it was all happening around the time and before Edgar Rice Burroughs went to serve in the cavalry here in Arizona. So we've been, with Wilcox, and then also we do watch some different YouTubers, and one that we watch is Sidetrack Adventures, and the guy just did, a few episodes kind of in that area. So no, he's not in there.
No.
Um,
Yeah, I went
I
straight
did.
to the end.
I went right to the index to look for Burroughs. I did pick this up because I did want to
You
read
know
more
you so
about.
well what I'm doing.
I know exactly what you're doing. We are big proponents for McFarlane Publishing, and
Because they're our publisher.
there are publishers. But I did want to, again, kind of related to the whole Edgar Rice Burroughs, and just learn a bit more about the world that he was writing in. So I did pick up science fiction from Wells to Heinlein. So I'll be checking that out and hope to give a little bit of a, update regarding that. But I believe there's a chapter in here about him. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that. And so that's kind of coming up out of that interest. And then, of course, got to talk mummies just for a moment. But I did pick up two books. One is The Mummy in Fact, Fiction, and Film. Definitely hits all the buttons of what I'm interested in,
Fantastic.
and a lot of what, we've talked about over the years on this channel. So I think this will be a good read. And it was one that I didn't actually have in my collection. I have two or three other ones from McFarlane in my collection, so I was very excited to get that. And then the other one, I have a few books about different archaeologists over the last let's see, a couple of 100 years. And this one struck a chord for me because I'm very fascinated, and that's Americans in Egypt, 1770 to 1950. And so it's explorers, councils, and, just other people that would have visited there. And this is kind of unique. I have a lot of biographies about individuals who have gone over there and done archaeological research early on. So I'm very excited to read that book because I think that'll be very interesting to kind of tie in a lot of the different individual biographies that I have. So I did add that to my collection. And then the last thing I did mention that with the Odyssey coming out this summer, that I was definitely interested in reading, hopefully, the Odyssey. And I did, this is already in my collection, but I have this
Wow.
lovely set. And so I'll be digging into those pretty soon, in hopefully in preparation for actually watching the movie and having a better grasp of Greek mythology before going in and watching the film. I mean, obviously, we've watched so many films that have Greek mythology, but that's pretty fictionalized and a lot of liberties taken.
We watched that adaptation of Troy starring the wrestler with the really bad fake beard put on him. If I recall, we actually liked it.
But yeah, it was fun. And I know, that's based on Odyssey, or at least some of the things. So I just want to have a better understanding and kind of a better understanding of the connective tissues regarding the mythologies and the history, in Greek antiquity. So I'm looking forward to trying to get into that. This is a nice collection because it does have a lot of endnotes in it. So, so I won't be all by myself trying to read something. So when, I'll have almost like a teacher there, sort of. So, and of course, we've got the internet so to help me out too. And of course, you, Hercules. So,
Awesome. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on all of these things that you've been sharing here so generously.
yeah. So I think that kind of added to my collection. Obviously, the set I had in my library already, but the other three books are new. And I think
I'm golden.
yeah, other than to mention that my co-host Travis Licata and I continue to do Ride the Stream. Sadly, Lost was taken off of Netflix at the end of the year, so we are looking at other things to do, and we've identified a couple of things. So in the near future, we'll be talking about the Thursday Murder Club. And then we're also going to be talking about, which might be kind of interesting down the road to also speak about here. We're going to discuss and cover the first season of Falling Skies, the
Hmm.
alien invasion. So it's kind of interesting that we've been talking about aliens and things like that. So he and I are going to be discussing the first season starting in the next couple of weeks. So those episodes will be going up probably, I'm going to say probably like mid or late February. So,
And we have a big chunk of our shows focused on aliens. So I'd gladly, if you want to post links to your shows that have to do with UFOs and aliens, both of you,
okay.
or
Yeah,
the
definitely.
planet, please share them on my site.
Definitely, I would like to do that. I think I've watched the first season and had started into the second season, really enjoying it. I didn't see it when it first came out, like usual. So I'm kind of late to the party, but at least I didn't miss the party. But anyway,
And I'm waiting for your Stargate special that both of you are doing.
yes, 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 going to be revisiting that and yeah, and talking about Deadly Spawn very soon on HP Lovecast.
Bringing that back after a year hiatus.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool.
So more aliens, more aliens. So
More, I'm all for that.
you, yeah. All right, my dear.
Okay, I think we're ready to get tonight's discussion.
Yeah.
Tonight, we are going to discuss Hercules Returns.
Yay!
Woo!
All right, so plot of Hercules Returns. Brad McBain, tired of working at the corporate world of theater chain conglomerates, quits his job, angering his boss, owner Michael Kent, and decides to open his own theater. He employs Sprocket, a really tall dude, to be his projectionist, and Lisa to be the theater's publicist. They decide to open the theater by showing the very last film the movie showed when it was originally open, Samson and His Mighty Challenge. The film print arrives and it turns out it's an Italian. Note, no duh. With a lobby full of well-dressed theater goers excited to see the movie, the trio do the only thing they can think of to save the evening: dub the film live. So, from the projectionist booth, the three shout out new, humorous lines over Hercules, Machista, Ursus, Samsons, and others, adding Foley effects as well. Their redubs win over the audience, who all laugh. In attendance is Michael Kent, outraged that this theater is going to be a success. He runs up to the projectionist booth to stop them. He gets into a sword fight with Brad, but he gets his lights knocked out by Lisa. Everyone is happy, and Hercules begins to rap. The end. That's
It was a catchy song too.
As a side note, this is kind of a harder film to talk about because it is a film within a film, and what do we focus on, the film or the other film? So
Well, and it's hard to focus in. Well, anyway, we'll get there.
we'll get
Sorry,
there. So
I'm getting ahead of the chariot.
there's yeah. So it's an interesting film to talk about. So with that in mind, overall, Michelle, what did you think of Hercules Returns?
I really liked it. I busted up so much through the entire film. I thought it was hilarious. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm actually gonna right there. You?
I thought it was stupid, but so stupid I loved it. It was like watching one of the Sword and Sorcery episodes of MST3K back when they did a couple of those. Some of the voices got annoying after a while, but aside from that, this
Yeah.
movie had a lot of great one-liners, and that's it. I liked it. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I only knew kind of what to expect going in, but I was happy to watch it, and I was laughing. Michelle and I were definitely laughing. She was laughing more, I would say, because she got more of the pop culture references than I do because she's from the 80s.
Yeah, full disclosure, the film was released in 1993. So, yes, a lot of the references were from earlier. I would say there was even a few back to referencing back to the 70s when I was a kid, but I got them because I I was familiar with it. So yeah, I think I did chuckle a bit more than you. But they had a lot of great lines in there, and I was just really impressed with how much kind of pop culture stuff they got into all their little dialogues throughout the thing.
I'll bring that up. They talk about that in the essay for that. So okay, I'll use this to transition real quick. The kind of the provenance of why we watched this film. I hadn't seen it before. But this is, over 10, 15 years ago. Uh, I imported an Australian, because it's an Australian movie. I imported an Australian DVD of it, and just never got around to watching it. And then Vinegar Syndrome just put out this, ornate edition with commentaries and isolated rap tracks and an essay booklet and stuff. I'm like, okay, it's out now. It's time for us to actually watch it and see what's going on. Hence, while we're doing it, but yeah, the movie's provenance came from, I guess, a theater troupe in the 80s. This guy and his girl or friend or girlfriend, um, they basically started a comedy act slash theater act or whatever, where they were taking bad movies and live dubbing them. And what they would do is, because it was live and they were moving around, they'd be in Melbourne and then they would be in Sydney or whatever, they would change their jokes to be, geographic specific. or if something just happened in the news, they would slip that in into one of their jokes. So that's probably why they're able to do a lot of the at the time pop culture references, is because that's what they were doing in their live shows of Hercules Returns and some of the other movies that they, I don't want to say spoofed, but that's probably where the thing comes from. I
The comedy the duo was called Double Take,
mhm.
and they would do different films. And as Nick said, they would tour around with these different films and do the dubbing live, which is very similar to like what we experienced when we got to see MST3K do a couple of performances. One live on theater where we actually watched them, and another that was like a live broadcast type of thing in a theater. I think that was
Yeah, we saw two. Well, I definitely got to bring that. When we
okay
were in San Diego, we saw them riff Plan 9, and that was live.
in
But then
2008.
and then later we saw Cinematic Titanic live in Seattle.
Okay.
But
Oh,
they're
that's
basically kind of
yeah.
the same thing. But that's yeah, I do want to, yeah, we'll bring that up on similar films. Cinematic Titanic is definitely
Yeah.
similar to this in a
And
way.
yeah, and apparently when reading the details about this movie, there was a Woody Allen film called What's Up, Tiger Lily. I
Yeah.
have not seen that, but apparently that is very similar to this. Because I mean, kind of like having a film within a film, is somewhat unique, but it is it's not like this hasn't been done before.
Right. Well, side note, kind of film within a film. If folks want to go through the archives on Scholars, a couple months ago we did Gentlemen Broncos. Now, while that wasn't a film within a film, it was book scenes within a film. And that kind of is like this. It turned out that the book scenes of them being on the other planet and
Hmm.
eating yeast and stuff happened to be funnier than the movie itself. Um, but I would say this movie is very similar to I have a list here. Radioland Murders with Brian Binbin and Christopher Lloyd. That's about a radio station that's opening up like in the late 30s, early 40s.
Hmm.
And it's like their opening night, just like in this film, it's their opening night, and everything's just going wrong. It's all slapstick. And they have scenes of Christopher Lloyd. He's a Foley artist doing all the funny effects, and they're doing that in this film. Another movie, Kung Pao Enter the Fist, which is a terrible film, but for the same reasons you gotta love it. It's came out in the early 2000s. It's a kung fu film. They took Tiger and Crane Fists, which I've never seen, but they basically redubbed it, and the director of this film inserted himself as a character into the film. I have seen this film, and it is terrible. Yet there are so many sequences of brilliances that are very quotable, and I kind of want to revisit it. I watched some stuff on YouTube and I was cringing, being ready for it tonight. Like, oh God, I remember this. It's so bad, but you can't help but look away. The Weird Al movie UHF is also kind of similar. That one is a small radio station or TV station, a UHF station, and then the big conglomerate TV stations trying to take them over. But that one also had like kind of parody movies in it. And this movie starts with like parody movies, like the guy's looking at posters of like movies like
Oh
Rambo
yeah.
Eats a Baby or something. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. And then finally, Cinematic Titanic. I
Hmm.
say that more than Mystery Science Theater 3000 because MST isn't just dubbing over the movies they're
Well,
watching.
they're more riffing
They're
than
riffing.
dubbing, whereas, like you said, Cinematic Titanic would have been doing dubbing some of the
Yeah,
dialogue.
they would they would do basically the same things as MST3K, but it has that live component of we're
Hmm.
watching a movie live and we're doing it live, while MST3K was more recreation of it all. But I'd say this movie is kind of like shades of all those before some of those happened. And I
Hmm.
do want to point out the 80s, maybe this is just a minor observation, but it seemed like the 80s was the time where there was a lot of people looking at older film work and reinterpreting them. MST3K started in the late 80s. This comedy group started in the 80s. I do want to throw out there, this is when Giorgio Moroder took Metropolis and basically subtitled it and gave it a film score. I think there's
Of
this.
contemporary music, yeah.
So I think there's a something going on at the time that people are like, let's look at this old stuff and do something new with it.
Well, and I think, with the rise of MTV,
Mhm.
may it rest in peace, we had video music, and so you needed to find, different inspiration. So it makes sense that you'd look to the past, to create something new.
Now, the movie they watched in this, I thought I had seen before, and I was wrong. They watched, I put it down as Samson and His Mighty Challenge, but the alternative name for the movie is oh, I already forgot. I know I wrote it down somewhere here. Give me a second. But it's like Hercules versus Samson versus Ursus versus everyone, the Invincibles. I thought it was this film, which I have seen, Hercules, Samsons, and Ulysses. It's not. It's a completely different film. And
Right.
so I did not know that. So that's why I can't really talk about the Peplum film itself because I feel like in order to talk about the dubbed version with their quirks and stuff they put in, I think you kind of got to see the original one first to kind of compare and contrast.
And what's kind of
Might challenge the original. That was a comedy too. So they
It,
took a comedic. They took a film that was comedic to begin with and kind of ridiculous, and then they dubbed that and put it in the context of the story with the movie theater. So that was the only damp cloth thrown over that experience. That if they picked something that was serious and
mhm.
turned into comedy, that would be a lot more impressive than taking a comedy and making it into a slightly different comedy.
W- Reading the plot for the original film and watching the dub version, I'm like, aside from some name changes and some one-liners, it feels like they're pretty on point in a way. That's what I gather, but I need
well,
to
and
watch it.
yeah, and it felt like some of the live, I'm going to say live dubbing that they were doing, in the theater, it felt like some of the lines kind of matched up with the mouth, and that kind of like, whoa, wait, is that what they really said? So it did kind of give me pause a few times, which was an interesting experience.
So, so about that. So for the movies that these folks were riffing,
Yes.
or I'm going to say riffing. I don't mean riffing. That's an MST3 redubbing. Um, they would like take a movie and of course watch it a zillion times to get the plot down, but they
Mm-hmm.
were also counting syllables of what the folks were saying, so they knew how many
Oh,
syllables that they would have, so they can insert their own things. But there are some like okay, in the original film, the city that they're going to is called Lydia. But so they keep saying Lydia, Lydia in the original film. But they're like, oh, what sounds like Lydia? Labia. So they took that name, and of course, they're mentioning that all the time, and then the princess is there everywhere. So they started calling her Labia because it's the same amount of syllables and phonically very close to Lydia. So that's what they were doing. That's why it
oh,
feels
okay.
so kind of on point as they were able to do stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, because it was almost jarring, and would kind of not, and I think that, that was probably part of their mission, is to make it a little bit jarring at the same time,
Probably.
because it's meant to not be exactly the same. And it's also meant to have comedic timing. So I feel like it was all in a way to make it not real. And to play with the fourth wall and to play with the reality of things.
This is a weird movie because it's a fourth wall movie that breaks the fourth wall
Hmm.
like in different ways. The fourth wall of the movie within the movie, which I think is clever. In fact, if I may, I think probably the weakest aspect of this film, other than some of the voices do get grating after a while. There's only so many times you could see Hercules go, oh, 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 after everything. I'm like, okay, but is they don't integrate what's going on in the movie within the movie with the wraparound, I guess. And it feels that way. It feels like it's a very loose plot of, the giant corporate guy coming to the small theater, and then they drop it. They show, the Hercules film, and then they come back to it. And I feel like you need some integrate. You'd said like more audience shots for instance, because you want to see how people are reacting to these jokes. I think they do it.
And I think that's where trying to interpret something that's usually done live
Right.
versus actually the film. And you're right, because I did feel that they were integrating the audience and then they'd go back to it, and I don't know if they felt like it became jarring or disruptive to the actual comedy that was supposed to happen, through these voices and this duo that's well known for their double take, that it became a showcase for that. And that's why um the the cutting in of audience reaction, I think, is maybe why they didn't do it, but I think they should have, because I do feel like the corporate guy, I think there needed to be more. Obviously, he doesn't want the Palace Theater to succeed, but when he's foiled, it would be nice to see kind of those shades of changes when when he begins to realize, and then he's
He
hearing the
doesn't
audience.
do anything in the film,
Well,
really.
and they don't go back to it, and then they just drop it for like a half an hour, and then as they're starting to wrap up and we're getting to the climax, that's when they're like, oh, we better bring that corporate guy back in.
And they actually integrate with the movie they're watching. They're
Yeah.
having a sword fight, and what they're saying becomes what the dub people are saying, and that's where it's like cool when that happens. Now,
Yeah.
from reading the essay in the booklet, it sounds like, the live shows were super well received, and a guy came along like, I want to do a movie of your live show, basically. And so, basically, how do you do that? They're riffing a movie. There's no plot other than the movie that they're watching. How do you put a plot around that? And so that's where this kind of sandwiched idea of let's make it a theater, and they're dubbing it on the spot and something. But it feels tacked on. It's basically like it almost feels it totally is. It's tacked on, and it feels tacked on. It doesn't feel integrated. And the few times it does integrate, it's when it's really funny. Like there's a scene where they're cooking, and then they pan back to the projectionist booth, and out of nowhere they set up like a pig on a spittle, and they're turning it. Total slapstick humor. But that's the kind of things I liked seeing. It's fun to watch the dubbing of the film, but in a way you could slice off the beginning of the film, slice off the end of the film, and just have this redubbed Hercules film, and it would be fine.
Hmm.
So that's kind of, and that's one of the reasons why the film, I think, flopped when it became a film, is because you took this live action experience and tried to filmify it, and that doesn't work all the time. I don't know.
Well, what I will say though about the book end story is kind of timely in a way, with regards to the fact that you have this cinephile fellow that's working for a big corporation. All they're concerned about is churning out the next hit based on prior hits. Well, that sounds really familiar.
It's not even that. They're talking about how we're going to
Well,
make a theater with cramped seats so we could sit more
well,
people and screw their comfort and stuff. It's that, that real private venture mentality that we see now distilled back in the early 90s are seeing it.
yeah, it's actually an interesting commentary for something back then when, we it wasn't even on the horizon that the cinema's experience would be in jeopardy like it is today. And the fact that, we now have studios that are more concerned about, oh, let's get another superhero movie out there type of thing.
That is
And just,
tailored to watch on your phone, and people tune out after 30 minutes, and so make sure you write around that and stuff. It is.
yeah.
And as a side note, I should point out, going back to Michelle and I being together, we met because we both did volunteer work at an indie cinema. So,
Yeah.
you know, a small mom and pop, basically indie cinema in Tacoma, Washington called The Grand, had
Hmm.
2 screens. We did volunteer work for them and stuff. So, I think we empathize with what the characters in this film are trying to do, bring back this old
Hmm.
style movie experience, um keeping it alive and stuff. And unfortunately I don't think they succeed in that, because they get the focus of the movie is on the redubbed Hercules. I get that you're supposed to kind of solve that issue with your wraparound, and it feels like it's missing the heart that the movie is purporting itself to have.
I would tend to agree because I feel like when they get all done and everybody's coming out of the theater and they think it's absolutely great, I'm thinking that projection room is just absolutely destroyed. They're gonna have water.
Up.
Yeah, and there's, water damage and barbecue damage and the real world stuff. Um, you know, uh, did did he really serve? Did he really deliver on the saving the theater and recreating this bygone, did that really happen? And I don't think that the main character succeeded in that.
Because
uh
what's going to happen the next? I mean, not to like read too much in it, but the next day is their modus operandi now is like their comedy group dubbing movies on the fly now, or is it go forward they're now operating as a true movie theater and just showing movies?
yeah.
So that means that the experience that they gave them was not a traditional experience. They were basically giving them a very specialized, in a way, Rocky Horror type experience, which is special, but
Hmm.
that's a different experience than going to the drive-in and watching a film, which you can't really do anymore, or watching a whole bunch of B films at a grindhouse, which you can't really do anymore. Those things are gone. um
Yeah, and I guess, when you're trying to create a certain experience that will resonate for people and also resonate for them when they leave, that it's something like, oh yes, that was something special that I experienced. It's just like Nick and I went to a tiki restaurant last night, called Tropic Thunder.
After the
And
movie.
after the movie, and it's a brand new tiki bar in Phoenix, and one of the drinks is like a very showmanship type of drink. So when you order it, it's basically you yourself, or you've set somebody up that is your friend or whatever, that they're going to be sacrificed to the gods. And what it is like this very big drink in a tiki bowl, and you sit in this huge skull.
Make that
Smoke
sound awesome. And it is.
and smoke billows out of the skull. The bartenders come out. They've got their little, skewer type thing with this huge volcano
Diorama.
diorama, and it happened twice last night. And the bar that usually has like all this music, it suddenly like goes quiet, and then you have the very tribal music. So it's really quite a show. And I mean, we've never experienced that kind of thing at a tiki bar, where it's like, a particular drink and they basically fashion this showmanship around a drink. But it's interesting
The
how that's
closest
going
we
to,
come to that is going to Cold Stone and you slip them a five for them to sing to you while they make their ice cream. I mean, that's the closest
right.
we had before
But
that.
it's something like that. Well, we'll remember this. Nick wants to do it, by the way. So maybe on his birthday or something, you know. But you know, it's things like that. How can they, how can, for instance, this film, the owner of the theater, or you know, if he's leased it or whatever, how can he ever do show up uh that
Mhm.
experience? It's like, you know, he's done everything right there, and now there's nothing to go back to. And I don't think he's been within the spirit of the cinephile where, you know, he seems to be very knowledgeable about films, and yet he makes fun of one. So,
I I feel like this is all stuff
mm-hmm,
that, again, the Hercules movie is shoehorned in this very thin plot,
mm-hmm,
and it's all stuff that I think like a second pass through on writing would fix. You know, like we were talking about right now, would be easily fixed with, okay, they thwarted the evil conglomerate guy. They're now reflecting over the night, and someone says, "Y'all ready to do this again tomorrow?" or something like that. You know, you could fill this with extra lines. Now we know that they've learned a lesson, they found their calling, they know what they're going to do, go for it, or something
mm-hmm.
like that. And it's all like, I think, easy fixing stuff that the wraparound story just doesn't quite get to.
It's like that they forgot about that they had a bigger story there, you know, and that became second to the dubbing
Which
that
I
the other
get
film.
though, because that
Yeah.
that that is your meat and potatoes, is the
Yes.
redubbed Hercules. That's the comedy, and and everything else is secondary, but you could still elevate it. The wraparound should
Hmm.
elevate the meat and potatoes. And with that in mind, I want to get into the good stuff, because there is some funny lines in this film.
Oh, he actually has it labeled good stuff.
Yeah, it's good because I feel like I'm ragging on the film, and I
No,
liked
it's
it.
no, it
It,
is a fun film. We
it
need to
is.
be ragging, and but there's a reason why this is considered a cult film.
The movie within the Hercules
Hmm.
redub is hilarious. It truly is, and I'm kind of kicking myself that I was too much caught up in the moment, that today when I'm sitting there trying to remember some of this stuff, I'm like, oh man, I was laughing too much and I don't even remember what I was laughing at, because it was coming by pretty quick. It's like watching an episode of MST3K, and you laugh through the entire episode, but at the end you're like, I only remember a quarter of the jokes because I was laughing over the next one. So I better go watch Zap Rousdower again and get the next one. It's the type of
Hmm.
movie that requires a rewatch. But
Yeah.
um one one of my favorites was the character of Labia, and not because she was called Labia, but as we talk about, the city was called Lydia, hence why she's called Labia. Is, even though most of the fake accents in the movie kind of wore on, not hers. She sounded like the Australian equivalent of like a trashy diner worker that's just kind of smacking her gum. What are you talking about? And what, but the thing is, she has like, the 60s like makeup, and it totally works. I was rooting for her the entire movie, more so than the four strongman characters, because I thought her dubbing was the best and most, like watching, like, like nitty, like women in New York, gossiping over each other or something. I don't
Uh-huh.
know, but that was the attitude that she was giving off, and it was so 80s. And so that's the thing. This is an Australian film, so as an American, I'm kind of removed from some of this, but I do feel like it was an Australian, new wave girl trying to be popular or something type dialogue, and I was there for it.
Uh-huh.
Um, what I did like about Hercules is he's always breaking out in a song. Even though I don't know the songs he's singing, Michelle was busting up. She's like, "Oh, that's a classic song. Oh, tie a ribbon around the tree. That's great." I'm like, "What are
Yeah.
you talking about? I don't know what that is." But when he does it, though, this is one of the kind of subversive things that I think I need to watch both films back to back, the original and this, is when Hercules does it, he outstretches his hand and he's booming his voice and stuff like that. And but what comes out are these show tuney, silly pop culture songs. But when you think of images of Hercules in normal peplum, usually when he's outstretched like that, he's clobbering guys, or he has chains in his hands and he's
And,
breaking vines
and
and
he's
stuff.
showing his strength.
Right, he's
Yeah.
showing his strength off to something. It's that visual, but he's singing this, and I think that's subversive. If I was more into, pastiche parody and postmodernism, I could probably explain that a bit better. But I like, a good parody can, elevates the original text and subverts it at the same time, and I caught on to that with Hercules's outstretched hands. Instead of showing his strength and stuff, which he kind of still does, he busts out in a song, and I like that as a person who kind of picks up on that type of stuff.
Well, it bears saying that our Hercules in this film within a film was played by Alan Still. So
Yes.
that way you can get the the visual of which Hercules we're
Mhm.
speaking of. So
Hey, Alan Steele is no, Gordon Scott, but he's still Alan Steele and he still rocks.
I really like Alan Still as Hercules. Yeah.
So one of the other kind of, I'm going to say, funny subversive things the film does is the character Lisa. You know, she in the real world setting, she's portrayed as this a lady, but whenever like a dude hits on her, she like punches him and they're out like a light. And like even at the end of the film, the main dude and the main evil dude, they're sword fighting with like stage things. Um, and she even exclaims, "Come on, guys, let's get this over with already." And then she just punches the main bad guy and sends him flying through the doors.
Yeah.
Uh, but what I'm getting at here is she's doing the stuff that a Herculean character would normally do in a
Mhm.
Peplum film. She's knocking out the bad guys with one hit, sending them flying. And even though she's not a muscle character, she's introduced as very kind of new wave looking, and then kind of business suited, but not quite. This is the late 80s, early 90s, so it's that kind of business shit. There's shoulder pads involved, I bet. But anyway, she's not the visual. She's not like an Amazon, for instance. She's not anything like that. She's just like kind of a normal looking lady, but she shows the feats of strength that a Hercules character would, and I think that's kind of cool. Another kind of subversive thing going on.
Well, and I think especially in comparison with our four strongmen who seem to be pretty inept, generally speaking, and like one is supposed to come out on top and kind of be the best of the best, and that really never happens. They end up fighting in the pool, and yeah, they just don't seem like they're able to figure out what they need to do, supposed to do. They get one up by the various women, like Samson, is drugged, and so his girl cuts
Delilah.
Delilah cuts his hair, and makes him less of a man, and
But that's actually his thing, though.
but
If he gets his hair cut, he loses his strength too.
exactly. So it's just, yeah, it's rather interesting how strong many of the women are in the real life, and then also in the film. That it definitely seems a bit different.
Yeah, I do want to point out probably my one of my favorite scenes in the film, probably my favorite gag, happens
Okay.
early in the film. Hercules arrives in the town because he wants to, Zeus has guided him there. He's going to be a show dancer at the club. Um, but they cut to a scene of Hercules is at a table eating, and there's no one else there. It's just one dude talking to Hercules, and Hercules is chowing down on everything, and he says something along the lines of, "Oh, this is a great meal. Really could have used some utensils though." And then he's like, I'm going to tell you a story. This one time I did this, and the guy's like, "I'm going to go over here now." And Hercules says something like, "All right, then I'll just tell myself my own story." And just keeps going. And I was losing it. That was like, it was just so great. But, it's those kind of MST-ish moments with the movie within the movie that I really liked. There's some other kind of like one-liners, like the testiculus, is pointing out like, the sandals they're wearing. They're sandals, but he keeps pointing out like your boots have the toes cut off and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's sword and sandal film, but he's that's just some of the jokes in it. But the Hercules feasting scene I thought was a great gag. Man, see, now I want to rewatch it and
I feel like
gags that we missed.
Yeah, I do sincerely believe that it does need multiple viewings because there were so many one-liners, different gags, references to different things. I was just really surprised by like Tony Orlando and Dawn singing Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around
Yeah.
the Old Tree, and of course, all the connotations around that and the time, with the yellow ribbons and things like that. So, I would love to go back, rewatch, and catch even more because I was just really surprised by how many they really came out with, and I was like, and also feeling how many more I caught that you didn't necessarily catch. So,
Yeah, I have a feeling if we knew more Australian pop culture, we would have caught some stuff because
oh, I'm sure.
they're saying things a slang that I didn't know, or I only know it because I know of an Australian friend. And also, yeah, the kind of older pop culture references and stuff. But that's made up a small part. The mythology is universal, even when it's ran through a filter of dubbed parody. I could
Mhm.
still, get the gist of the story and pick up on, in this case, some of the jokes.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of like also looking at the people that were in the movie, in the bookend part. The fellow that played Sprocket was from Mad Max 2, I believe.
He was in two Mad Max films.
Yeah, and then Mad Max and the Thunderdome, but he's been in like Lord of the Rings and other things. So he's actually been, he looked familiar when I saw him. I didn't recognize really, well, I recognized the corporate guy, but I didn't really recognize
Well,
anybody else.
side note, you've got homework to do because the main hero in this film was in the movie Razorback,
He
which is
was, yes,
directed by the dude who did Highlander.
Russell May.
So you
McKay.
need to go back and check out his Au revoir.
I do. I do.
See Razorback, the Australian answer to Jaws. How are you going to do that? The giant boar.
Yep, you know it. Can't wait. But yeah, so I think with that, we've concluded our discussion um, of Hercules Returns. And with that, we are going to pass the torch of knowledge back to our very um, generous host, Hercules.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your review and your thoughts on this movie. Um, and you made some very good points that hadn't even occurred to me, but that make a lot of sense now that I've heard them from your mouths to my ear. Like uh, I had drawn some parallels between the fighting that was happening in the movie and what they were finally fighting about. But I also thought, like you, that they could have added a line at the end that said somebody in the audience likes what they did, and then now they
Mhm.
have to do it again tomorrow. And then since they were originally, and I didn't know this, so I heard it from you guys, since they were originally people that did this and inspired the movie, then show a few clips of them doing it past the movie, and this was like an origin story. It wouldn't have taken much to strengthen the weak parts, but you're right. Just a little bit of more reviewing and writing would have fixed a lot of things wrong with the movie. I liked this movie, and when I had the certain sample groups on Facebook that had like 20,000 people in them, which I don't have anymore, I used to occasionally use those movies to greet people into the group. So they would get Labia sitting on the stone there in the water, or they would get all the sword and sandal strongmen riding their horses and so on. And I'd welcome people into the group that way.
Yeah,
Sorry, you know who just showed up.
yeah.
I will say that in credits would be good to show like I don't want to say bloopers, but live scenes. But on the other hand, the credits do have. I thought it was a hilarious Hercules rap song. So
Yes.
Gotta go check it out. If you're not familiar, you definitely gotta hear the Hercules rap song. But yeah.
Now, how can people find you and enter the wonderful worlds that you've created and that you open portals to through your work?
Why don't you go first? I
Okay.
went first last time.
I'm at nickdiak.com. That's where, I post all of our links to our Scholars from the Edge of Time and other podcasts, news of, what Michele and I are doing. Sometimes I write essays and book reviews and comic book reviews that go there, or just whatever catches my fancy. I am switching it though. And I used to update it every other week with like news. I'm just going to switch to once a month because I'm not as prolific as I want to be. So I don't think I need that many news updates. So, but aside from that, it's a giant interchange of all the things that Michele and I do.
Yeah, and I've got Amazon author page where you can see what I've done as far as publications, book related. I've got a lot of writing out there, for pop culture that yeah, I think you could Google and find some of the other things. But yeah, I can be found at my website, although I don't keep it up to date. I'm sorry, I'm just not really a big social person. I've got a lot of cats here that I've got to be herding on a daily basis, and creating art and having fun discussing various pop culture things. So I'm more about doing that than so focused on social media. But if you want to see what Nick and I have done together, definitely check out his website because he has all of that. And of course, he's got a prolific Facebook page, a lot more than I do. No surprise there. Which are various adventures and things like that. So anyway, I think that's it.
Thank you very much again. I always look forward to our talks, and I certainly was not disappointed today. I remembered a lot that made me laugh. I learned a lot that I didn't know. I recontextualized some things that I didn't know. So it was an educational experience as well as a pleasant one.
Wonderful.
Well, it's wonderful to see you, and we'll see you next month.
Be well until then, and
You
Happy
too.
New Year.